You can create excitement, you can do wonderful promotion and get all kinds of press. You can throw in a little hyperbole. But if you don't deliver the goods, people will eventually catch on. Donald Trump.
Hello and welcome to the show, Colourful Conversations with Clergyman Pete. Well, this week we asked the question, Brexit, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Well, the saga continues. Yes, are we in, are we out, are we shaking it all about? Brexiteer Cabinet Minister Liam Fox has accused pro-Remain MPs of trying to, in effect, steal Brexit amid backbench moves to take control of the process. Now, he told people in a media interview that you've got a Leave population and a Remain parliament.
Yeah.
Parliament has not got the right to hijack the Brexit process. Well, that may be true. But there are many people who are just simply calling for us to actually leave. So, for example, Labour's Sir Keir Starmer has said that the MP should not rule out a no Brexit deal. Quite right. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know whether we're coming or going. And I know that Clergyman Pete still doesn't have a clue what's going on. It seems as though we're just simply going backwards and forwards. So here's a piece of advice. The best advice is to never look back, for your head will tangle and twist. As opportunities soon start to stack, success will sorely be missed. Forget the past and keep moving ahead. With your mind focus on the prize and make forward progress instead to show that you look wise. But sticking out your neck until it's big, highly sprung and looking perverse, it'll make you appear a bit of a prig and you're in coil and go in reverse. Yes. Well, it seems as though many politicians are looking backwards and forwards, sticking their necks out, twisting and twisting until the fact that they uncoil, spring round, do a little dance and go in reverse. So, Clergyman Pete, Brexit, where on earth do we go from here?
Well, I think there is one direction, and I think yes, one direction is, of course, one of the great acts of our time, but I wasn't referring to them specifically. What I was talking about was the door. There's one way, and there's the door. Don't forget to close it on the way out. I think that's the way to go. We are to leave the European Union forthwith, toot sweet, as they say over on the continent. I don't see really that there's any other way. Fans of Question Time, that great British, I was going to say debate, but it's more of a performance program, isn't it? You have people from different shades of the political spectrum, and you ask them questions, but don't really give them enough time to answer. So it's more of a spectacle than a proper debate. But it's a popular show. It's become part of the British culture that politicians will go on there, some of them dreading it, especially if they've got to keep a party line they don't agree with. And on this particular episode, so it's the one before, the one that was aired before we recorded or broadcast this episode first on Mark and Pete, the journalist Isabel Oakeshott, she claimed that the only option left for Theresa May, the Prime Minister, was to walk away. The only option was no deal. And that's a fair point. And she did justify it in that because of the way that the negotiations have gone, that they've really been just stonewalled by the negotiators have been stonewalled by the European Union, and the fact that Parliament has voted to leave. There is a law in place which say we leave on March 29th. It's been put into British law as well as being part of Article 50 of the European Union. Then that means that there's no alternative. The only option is to walk away. The Question Time audience erupted into applause, and I've watched it, on and off over the years, and I've never seen them react like that. Not a little murmur, but cheers of applause. For those, if you look it up on on YouTube or other video sites, sharing sites are available somewhere else, and you look up Isabel Oakeshott cheer, you'll find it on there. And if you're not British, you might think, well, that was a bit subdued. But let me tell you, for a British TV audience on the serious Question Time, that was a big response. And if that's repeated across the country, which I suspect it is in certain areas, it will be the majority opinion. We're looking at, if they had a second referendum on this, on the deal, then it would be a rout for the Remainers. I think that people are just fed up with it, especially the way that the European Union have treated our Prime Minister. Whether you like her or not, she's been treated as our Prime Minister with great disrespect. People think, well, let's just go there. Why do we want to be in a club with people who hate us? So the way forward is out, is what I'm saying. The way forward is straight out.
Well, indeed. So the 29th of March, 2019 is the deadline, folks. That's the date that you've got to think about.
Put it in your diary.
The fact of the matter is that
cancel your visits to Europe.
Well, the fact of the matter
close the door.
Close the door.
Pull up the drawbridge.
But I think that is the best way to handle the matters, because I think that, look, let's be honest, are we in, are we out? We just seem to be going round and round in circles. What has been the most contentious political subject since living memory? The fact of the matter is I think now it's got to the point where, certainly, let's take one audience, and we're going to cover a number of stakeholders here, but let's start with business. Business now are exasperated. They don't know how to plan at this moment in time. They're hedging their bets. And what they want, as everybody knows, is certainty. They need to know what they're dealing with. And then the fact of the matter is I think what we now need is we just need to get out. Get out, make it very clear. And I think the best strategy would be is if we left on the 29th of March, literally, we are gone. That's it. We are out of Europe. We have no more obligations. Clearly, we will not have a framework of agreement. However, one thing, as I've said many, many times, is that businesses know how to do business. Politicians don't. And the fact is that what will happen is I think the pain will show very clearly where there are frictions, whether it's on borders, whether it's on tariffs, whether it's on standards, laws, etc. And I think it's at that point that the EU will have a dawn of reality, as well as the United Kingdom, to say, okay, these are the pain points. This is where we now need a point of agreement. But the fact of the matter is that by simply going round and round the houses right now, trying to cobble some strange agreement, which I know is what Theresa May has been trying to do, it is really not really helpful. There is one other thing that slightly worries me, and that is the potential that we could extend Article 50.
Yes.
Now, what that means is that although we are officially due to leave on the 29th of March, it is actually technical possible to actually go for another few more months. Now, whether that's 3 months, whether that's 6 months, effectively to extend the negotiating time. Some people think that's a good idea, meaning that at least it will come to a position where we would have a framework of agreement. My thought here would be, take a look at the last 2 years. What is it that they could come to an agreement now that they couldn't do in the last 2 years? I don't think that all that's doing is it's just extending the uncertainty.
Yes, I think it's worth pointing out that we are Mark and Pete, and in fact I don't know anyone who would disagree with that. Of people who do disagree with what I'm about to say, of people who are for leaving without a deal. And that is, it's not that we're saying there should be no negotiation. What we're saying is that there should be no more negotiation before we leave. I mean, that's a crucial distinction. We're not saying don't negotiate. Of course, negotiate. In fact, I would go further. I don't know how far this would go, but I think it would be worth trying to negotiate individually with the countries in the EU. Because my opinion is that not only is the EU bad for Britain, it's just basically a bad idea. If it were to break up, although there would be a lot of uncertainty in Europe, and it would be difficult for a time, what we could then move towards is a sort of gathering of nations and have a council of meeting of, the foreign ministers or heads of state or whatever it is, making decisions for how Europe works best together. And that's what people thought the EU was going to be.
Yes.
I mean, we thought there'd be some sort of common market. We now know that's a bad idea because of it ends up being very isolating. And so it's ended up being a shrinking market, the European Union's single market, as it's now called. And so that side of it people were aware of. But all the rest of it, the political stuff, was meant to be nation states coming together, not a doing away with nation states to replace it with one big empire, sort of a bit like or one big union, a bit like the Soviet Union. In fact, not a bit like it, almost exactly like it.
Yes, it's becoming that way.
With the same people running it, in the people in positions of power in the European Union, most of them are ex-communists. And the question that we have to ask is, are they really ex-communists? Actually, I just reflecting on what I said, I don't know if most of them are. Certainly the ones that I've heard of are. That's all I can say. But they're ex or current communists. And so what we're seeing is, the left wing behaving in the way that it does in Europe, becoming more and more regulatory and taking over. It's bad for Europe. It would be better if it broke up. So I think an attempt should be made to negotiate directly with Germany, directly with France, after having left, and see if we can get them to break with the European Union and negotiate separately. There could be much more targeted and therefore better deals done, because they're different countries.
Yes, and I think this is what I think that many people are beginning to realise now, that I know that there is no doubt that we want to have a strong relationship with Europe, i.e. countries in Europe. The problem is that Europe is, and I know that many nations say they're all different in different ways, but the contrast between some of the nations is quite extraordinary. So, for example, if you take the culture and the economic situation of Portugal and compare that, say, with Germany, compare that with Greece, compare that with France, I mean, there is such a vast difference. To try and hold it together in some form of club is bizarre. It was a failed project from the start. I mean, I think we're in this situation now where I think more and more nations are starting to see it. But I actually think it'll be the catalyst when the UK does leave, and it will leave. I'm confident that it will leave at some point, and I think it will be fairly soon. But I think that what we will see is that we will see a level setting of how things need to be. Business will drive things. The end of the day, look, what really matters to a lot of people, apart from humanitarian matters, but the economy is the thing that drives people's decisions. And economically, United Kingdom is going to be better off. But ironically, and this is the bit that I'm puzzled a little bit by the EU leaders, actually I think it's in their favour as well, because stifling the United Kingdom, which has hundreds of years worth of entrepreneurial spirit, both service and manufacturing capability, and it can offer a great deal. The EU has stifled the United Kingdom in recent times, and I don't just mean politically with the divide that's occurred there, but many people are starting to question now, can they function under an EU environment? They can't. And so they're much more, I think the United Kingdom will be more effective to everyone by coming out. And I don't know what negotiations have happened behind closed doors, but I'm surprised that people haven't seen that. Yes, it is better for the United Kingdom to be independent from the EU, but whilst trade with the EU.
Yeah, yes. Now, could we just now look at the direction? We're talking about which direction we're going to take. Internally, inside the UK, what's going to happen? There are rumblings of a snap general election to give authority to the Prime Minister or take it away completely, depending on what happens, obviously. Now, because that's in the air, it could be after the 29th of March that it happens, in fact, most likely. But because of it, we have Nigel Farage.
Our great hero.
We're big fans here on the show, of course, but he takes a different position on a few points from Mark and Pete, which is obviously his mistake. I mean, that's all I can say. But Nigel Farage is looking at, well, has already taken steps to set up a new party that I believe he will lead. He has apparently been registered. His party's been registered with the Electoral Commission, so they've taken that step. And he says that he's ready to field candidates if there's a snap general election. It's called the Brexit Party. And that's interesting because what happened to UKIP? And now UKIP is deemed to have wandered off into the fringe because of its right-wing shift. Now, the right-wing shift that's referred to and noted, when I actually look at what it is, it seems to be an anti-Islam stance. And I would have thought anyone sensible would have an anti-Islam stance because of the incompatibility of Islamic culture with British culture. And they come in via Europe, hence it's a problem. Not always, we've got plenty of Muslims within our country. And it's not that there's a problem with Muslims, it's a problem with Islam, the actual religion itself. So I don't agree that there's a problem, but for our purposes here on this show, what we're talking about, what direction? Well, the direction could be that of a snap general election. I don't know what you think, Mark, because we haven't talked about this. But do you think then that this move by Nigel Farage actually weakens UKIP and his own influence, such that actually Theresa May could come out on top?
Well, I think that many people don't want a general election. I think they feel that actually is going to muddy the waters even more, than ever before.
Yeah, but I mean, if we were to have one. Yeah.
If we were to have one, I actually think, ironically, we'd probably end up back to a pretty much similar situation to where we are now.
Yeah, that's
and the reason I say that is that, bizarrely, I think the DUP, no matter what Theresa May does, for all the reasons that we now know, will probably still support her. Now, I know that's only 10 or potentially around a dozen votes, depending on what happened in the general election. But I think that I can't see how Jeremy Corbyn would win. And so whatever the Labour Party were potentially proposing, both for the United Kingdom and for whether we were in Europe, out of Europe, I don't think it really matters, because I think we just end up back in the same scenario. All we would have done is had a nice general election, shouted about it an awful lot, and we'd be back to square one. So I think that when it comes to a general election, I'm hoping we don't have it. If we did, I predict that the outcome will be very similar to what we've got.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
I'm not sure that it would achieve anything. So I would strongly avoid that. Yeah. But where do we go from here? I think that where I do think that there is a possibility, unfortunately, they missed a trick. I thought that it was an opportunity to oust Theresa May, and I think it would have been better to have had a different leader, a leader with a clearer line. And what I think is quite extraordinary is, why has it taken 2 years for Theresa May to bring together different members of the House, that's the House of the Parliament, that's from people from different parties, to come together to negotiate? It's taken all this time. Her hand has been forced, but she's been so stubborn on this matter. To me, that was the obvious thing to do. So where do we go from here? I think it is the right approach, that we're drawing upon all the different skills and all the different experiences for people who are of like mind, as well as those that may have some concerns about the direction. But the point being is, a collaborative approach should have been the way that we should have been taking 2 years ago.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're now up against time. But I think, let's see, I think that, ironically, here we are in January 2019. I actually think that there is still time to come to a clear position. I still think it's the right thing to come out, but with a clear position to the EU. Stop the silly negotiations going backwards and forwards, as we've discussed at the beginning of the show.
So I agree, yeah.
I would do it, and that's what I think is the outcome. And then what we would then do is that we strongly trade with individual nations from there on.
Yes. No, I agree, that's what we should do. And I hope and pray that we do that. I made a prediction, and we talked about the future for the Brexit negotiations before. Right at the start of the year, I was predicting that something would happen, and sadly, nothing has happened to make me think otherwise. I think that despite the fact that even troops have been drafted in to help with a no-deal situation, which I don't think will be necessary. But anyway, they've been drafted in. What I think will really happen is the usual thing that we would do, particularly under Theresa May, is take the weak, cowardly position and go and ask the EU to extend it and try. And it may even be that happens. But some weak, pathetic compromise will happen, and we will remain in the single market, and we will be weakened as a nation and never recover.
Oh dear. Listeners, what do you think?
You don't come here to be cheered up. You come here to hear the truth. If you can handle the truth. That's what I fear will happen.
What do you think, listeners? Let us know your thoughts. Log on to markandpete.com and fill out the contact form. We'd love to hear from you. Well, thanks for joining this colourful conversation. I know that Brexit is coming to an end, we believe.
Yes.
We hope.
Amen.
Thank you, Clergyman Pete. Thanks for joining us today, and join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.